Admittedly, Reflection isn't the most original title for this piece, but it was the most appropriate. When I think about how to prepare a scholarly article for publication, I think that there are steps that we have to go through time after weary time. We start with the raw material or the idea. In this case, we started with a paper that we'd written. We get the guidelines from the selected journal. Then we revise the paper in accordance with those guidelines. Then, if you're really brave, you ask your colleagues to read it. And actually, I've had my mom read many of my graduate papers. After the colleagues have read it, I review it again with guidelines, revise it with the guidelines, read it again, and then submit it according to the guidelines for the journal that I'm submitting to. In this case, it was the Journal of Nursing Education. Well, I started with a paper that I wrote in Dr. Linden's class last fall, and the subject, ironically, was using reflection in nursing education, specifically during a clinical rotation. I have used Walt Whitman's book, Memoranda During the War, as part of my nursing history non-clinical elective. Whitman was not a nurse, but he did nurse soldiers after they had been wounded or injured. So anyway, that's what this paper was based on, and the activity that I wrote about was based on this as well. Originally, I had decided to submit to Nurse Educator, but then I elected to go to the Journal of Nursing Education. They have several different size articles in this journal, including a very short, a relatively short syllabus selection. And I decided to go with this because I felt that I needed to practice being concise, saying what I needed to say in a short amount of time and space. So I figured this would be the best way to go. The revision process was really a challenge. How do you take a 14-page paper and make it into a 2-typed double-spaced pages paper? Editing has really always been difficult for me. As someone who's been writing since the age of about 13 or 14, I consider what I've written, whether it's scholarly or fiction, to be part of me. And so editing it, taking things out of what I've written or deleting things is sort of like cutting off a body part. A lot of times when I'm editing things and trying to shorten projects, I will make a file of outtakes so that I still have them. This is something I really need to work on. The other thing I need to work on in terms of revision is not to personalize it, that the criticism isn't to me, but it's constructive feedback to the project or to the manuscript. This is something I really need to work on. The other thing I always worry about is, will the reader get it? And how can I communicate to the reader what I want to without doing it in 6 pages? What if they don't like what I've written? What if I don't like the reader's suggestions? I know that when I've written before, I made some of the selected changes and I didn't make the others. And so I said, with due respect, I elected not to make this change because of this, that, and the other thing. The manuscript that you write should always be reviewed along with the guidelines right there so that you can make sure you're citing things the right way, revising things the right way, and so on. I don't think you can ever read anything too often, although sometimes it's really necessary to put things away for a few days, a few hours, however long you need to sort of read. I don't exactly know how to say it, to gain fresh perspective, I guess. And then you submit to the guide according to the guidelines. And I tell you what, when I hit that submit button the other day, it wasn't exactly panic that I felt, but it was kind of panic. It's kind of weird. But anyway, so the article has been submitted. The title of it is Whitman's Legacy, the Art of Reflection in the Development of Empathy in Student Nurses, and it has been submitted as a syllabus selection to the Journal of Nursing Education. So, fingers crossed, we'll just wait and see. I checked this morning, and at this point in time, the article is still being pre-screened. So hopefully that'll change in the next few days or the next week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything, and I will see you in the fall.